Make sure we live, so give it that a moment. Upcoming. All right. Too many call it peace. In noon science war times, we are back with the BIAE Interpretation Book 2, Part 12. And tonight, Anoop will take point and continue on disseminating the information in the Bible interpretation explanation. Afro Unu, aka Amanubi Rakapata, at the time when he wrote the book, he said, when all questions have been asked and answered about the Bible, then people will be ready for the science of Nawapu. And then the name was changed to Noon Science. So that's what we're doing. He actually made a prediction. And once we figure that out at the proper time is why we're doing it now. So when we finish book 2, something will indeed change and shift, which we already told y'all that's going to be this coming October 13th, and that is going to be the shift. So we should be finished before or by that time. So that will put us fulfilling what Afro Unu had said in 67 and 68. So therefore, that'll be the beginning of the 3.5-year period where we're going to watch Netanyahu and the state of Israel perform some of the most disturbing things that this world has ever seen, let alone with the rest of the world helping, and eventually it's going to lead into a religious World War III. All right, so this is where we at. Buckle up. We want y'all to understand that the only way you're going to have a way out is you have to get away from religion and allow Noon to upgrade those religions to break the spells on the words themselves. That's why Noon have to be integrated within those these religious books, because they're heavily dosed with dark magic. And we explained this to y'all since we started the last 2 videos. We went in exclusively on how the Jewish people, and by extension the Christian and Muslims books, are all being heavily powered up by the moon god Tahuti. And that this is why all 3 of these groups and their many sects are running around the world killing and murdering in the name of the moon god, because the moon itself represents death and it magnifies death. So it doesn't matter how many good Christian Jews and Muslims you may know, those individuals do not trump what the books by their nature are designed to do. So stop allowing that to trick you. All right, these books are devastating and weapons of mass destruction. All right, so I'm your host, Sipu Tarkina Unanuku, and today I'm wearing the name of Sipu the Moon in the positive, because the day is Moon Day, all right, on Monday, the 2nd day of the week. All right, that's my introduction. Thank you. Go ahead, Nebo.
Oh, okay. True Peace, Cans and Friends. I'm Nebu Reunu, Nupu. And yes, we're back at it again with a BIAE Interpretation Book 2, Part 12. And for all the information that has come out, I hope it is doing its due diligence with helping those to step away from religion, or just basically taking a look at this information and working on what they have been taught over the years, and allowing the spell to be broken would be in the best interest. True peace.
All right. True peace, all kins and friends within the planet Gaia. Gia, and all the universes and sooniverses alike. I am Bunu Nupu. I am a representative of Noon Science and Nupu that was brought to us by our great messenger, Afro Unu Nupu. Today we will definitely be tapping into the Bible interpretations, explanations. We are getting closer to the booklets coming to an as far as a close, as far as the internet or the of course we're gonna go back to certain parts of the BIAE, but as far as it being taught in full like this, probably won't be done again because we'll be moving forward to the other books. All right, and tonight will be a really good and special show, so stay tuned. All right, let's get the noon party started. Of course, we go to our faithful, as the Christians would say, our faithful, what you call it? Not yet, actually. We're not going to go to that yet, which is ChatGPT, who happens to be helping us track down a lot of this information. So we are very thankful that we're able to use something like this type of technology within our favor and use it for positive. Of course, we know that a lot of it is not used for positive, but we will be using it for positive and for spreading information. Okay, now let's go. All right, so the next question was letter H. Who were the physical father and mother of Jesus, Esau Panthera? Where was he killed and what happened to his body? So remember before I was reading through the whole thing. Now I'm going back to doing paragraph by paragraph. So we're gonna bounce around a little bit because I like to read from the original books and then go back to the to ChatGPT and then answer the questions there so that we could track down some of this information. All right. So once again, the question is, who were the physical father and mother of Jesus? Esau Panthera. Spelt it wrong here. It says Esau, but it's Esau, Esau. Okay, Esau Panthera. Where was he killed and what happened to his body? Number 79. As stated in booklet 1, called Bible Interpretations and Explanations, the mother of Jesus was a black Phoenician queen of Egypt who had children but was unmarried. And this fact made it easier for Caucasians to state that Jesus had no father. Yet, the physical father of Jesus was a high-ranking Roman soldier, a general, who was one of the Roman triumvirate. The mother of Jesus was Cleopatra, of well-known but notorious personage, and his father was Marcus Antonius, better known as Mark Antony. Antony was a warmonger. All Caucasians are personifications of ghosts because they were bleached, ghostized by Leviathan using the ghost process when they were being extracted from the Phoenician and East Indian peoples. Therefore, Mark Antony, being Caucasian, was ghost in person. Hence, when he impregnated Cleopatra, the ghost had overshadowed Mary, Cleopatra. St. Matthew's first chapter, 18th and 20 verses. Cleopatra was never Roman nor Greek, like Caucasian history pretends. She was Phoenician, East Indian type woman. Okay, so that's the first paragraph. Now we're gonna jump in to the ChatGPT. All right, you see the you see the ChatGPT?
Uh-huh.
You see it, right?
Yeah, we
Yes.
should.
Okay,
Yes.
great. All right, great. All right. So yes, so that was the first paragraph, right? So we're gonna give an introduction again to the bald-headed digital noonie boo known as Chat GPT. Okay. And this is a breakdown of what took place. Okay. Here's a detailed scholarly breakdown of the passage you quoted from booklet 1 of Bible Interpretations Explanations, cross-reference with ancient sources, legends, and historical parallels that relate to the claim that Jesus, Esau Panthera, was the son of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. The name Esau Panthera and the Panthera tradition. In Jewish polemical sources, for example, the Talmud, the Tractate Shabbat 104b, and the Sanhedrin 67a, Jesus is called Yeshu ben Pandera / Panthera. This tradition claims his father was a Roman soldier named Panthera, sometimes Pandera, not Joseph. Not Joseph and not God. Origin, 3rd century CE in Contra Celsum 1.32 reports that Celsus, a critic of Christianity, accused Jesus of being the illegitimate son of a Roman soldier named Panthera. Epiphanius, 4th century CE, Panarian 78.7, also notes this alternative genealogy. This is the closest ancient textual source for the idea of a Roman father for Jesus, though Panthera is not equated with Mark Antony in classical sources. Right? So this is where we get it from. We get it from the Jewish text. And a lot of the reason why we're going to see a lot of Jewish texts is because they started to, at some point in time, they started to eliminate a lot of the African sources, a lot of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs and things like that, because they needed to eradicate that culture in order to bring their own culture in. So what we're going to see is a lot of Jewish scholars, a lot of Roman scholars, a lot of those things, because they were the ones that were recording history. They were recording history at that particular point in time. Okay? All right. Cleopatra as mother. Cleopatra the seventh, Philopator, 69 BCE to 30 BCE, was indeed queen of Egypt, styled as queen of kings, and often associated with divine and foreign heritage. Roman propaganda, especially by Octavian / Augustus, painted Cleopatra as a seductress of foreign, Eastern, and un-Roman blood, sometimes described as having mixed Macedonian, Greek, and Egyptian elements. Some modern Afrocentric historians emphasize her Phoenician and possibly African heritage, stressing that the Ptolemies intermarried with Egyptian priestly families. Ancient sources: Plutarch, Life of Antony 27 to 29, and Cassius Dio, Roman History 50 to 51, describe Cleopatra's relationship with Antony and her position as Egypt's last pharaoh. Well, she wasn't Egypt's last pharaoh. Last pharaoh happened to be Caesarion, who we had already explained that was Jesus. Okay. Mark Antony as father. Mark Antonius, 83 to 30 BCE, Roman triumvir in general, was Cleopatra's consort. Together they had children: Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus. Okay, linking Antony to Jesus is not in any classical record, but follows the Afrocentric reinterpretations. Antony as the Roman triumvir soldier matches the Talmudic Roman soldier Panthera claim, and that's a fact. Okay, ancient sources: Plutarch, Life of Antony, Appian Civil Wars confirm Antony's reputation as a warmonger. which aligns with the booklet's description. So as we can see, Plutarch, one of the Jewish scholars, they one of the Greek Jewish scholars, because Greek and Jew are the same. Okay, at this particular point in time, Greek and Jew are one and the same. Okay, so when we see these Greek authors, just know that they are also Jewish in origin as well. Okay, so Plutarch wrote the life of Antony, right? And in the Civil Wars, he confirms that Antony is a warmonger. Okay, the overshadowing language. The booklet cites Matthew 1:18 and 20, where Mary conceives after being overshadowed by the Holy Spirit. The reinterpretation is that Cleopatra Mary was overshadowed by the Roman Antony / the ghost, a materialistic retelling of the virgin birth story. This parallel fuses the Christian virgin conception with the Roman soldier tradition panthera. And the reason why they call her a virgin is because she wasn't married. Real quick, I'm gonna go to the etymology of the word virgin. Okay, so we're gonna go to the etymology. Wait, I think it's okay, here we go. Real quick, we go to virgin, right? Because we deal with the origin of words. Okay. Okay. So you guys can see that.
Make it a little bigger.
Okay. Okay, here we go.
Mhm.
All right. So we see the original meaning of the word, right? Before it has anything to do with sex. Because you can see in this particular definition, do we see the word sex anywhere in here? Not at all. Only thing that may allude to sex is unused. Okay, so I'll read it real quick. From 1200, from circa 1200, unmarried. That is the first word. Unmarried or chaste woman, noted for religious piety and having a position of reverence in the church. From Anglo-French and from Old French, virgine, virgin, Virgin Mary. From Latin, virginum. Nominative, virgo, maiden, unwedded girl or woman. Also an adjective, fresh, unused, probably related to virga, young shoot, via notion of young. Compare Greek talis, a marriageable girl, cognate with Latin talia, rod, stick, and bar. Okay, so we see that the definition is unmarried or chaste. Okay, so there we go. That is the original meaning of the word. So when we see the word unmarried in the Bible interpretations, that's what they mean. That she's a virgin, but that doesn't mean that she didn't have sex. It just meant that she wasn't married. Okay. So Phoenician, East Indian ancestry. Cleopatra's ancestry is debated. The Ptolemies were Macedonian Greeks, but Afrocentric historians argue she had Phoenician, Levantine, and Egyptian priestly bloodlines through early dynastic mixing. Phoenicians were often described by classical writers Herodotus and Strabo as Semitic seafarers with links stretching to North Africa and the Indian Ocean trade, making the Phoenician East Indian identification part of broader revisionist history. Okay? Caucasians as ghosts. The text idea of Caucasians as ghost-sized people does not come from Greco-Roman or biblical sources, but from Afro-Unu metaphysical lexicon. And the reason why he uses the word ghost is because it has no electrical fire within it, or it's the lowest form of ether that you could find. Okay, they cannot produce melanin. This is why they are called the ghost. Okay, it's the lowest form of energy as far as electrical fire is concerned, right? So it's like a white mist, okay? Symbolic use of ghost equals whitened or bleached humanity, connects to Afrocentric critiques of racial mixing and Greco-Roman self-identification as separate from Egyptians and Phoenicians. Summary of the ancient correlates. Panthera tradition comes from the Talmud, the Celsus, the Origin, and the Epiphanius. Cleopatra's mother comes from the classical historians Plutarch and Cassius Dio. Mark Antony's father comes from the same source of Plutarch and Appian. Overshadowing interpretations come from Matthew's 1:18-20, reimagined through Panthera legend. The Phoenician identity comes from Herodotus, 1.2, first chapter 1 to 2, and 7.89 on Phoenician migrations and blending. Warmongering description. Plutarch, Life of Antony, 60. Antony as consumed as war, and Cleopatra. So in this particular paragraph, like I said before, you see no Egyptian sources here. Everything is coming from the Jews because they are the ones who started to take over. Okay, so now we're gonna go back to the Bible interpretations real quick, and we're gonna go to the number 80 real quick. All right, y'all see that?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
All right. We must understand that Caucasian history is lies, falsely and ironically written to hide facts, mislead, and deceive. Although the Phoenicians were well scattered and powerful by 2 or 300 BC, by the Romans and Jews and other Greeks who were controlling Egypt, allowed figurehead puppet kings and queens of Phoenician ancestry to continue to sit on the throne of Egypt until Jesus was rejected as king. The same way Caucasians set up and controlled parrot rulers and puppet governments in these times, they did the same in those times until revolutionary forces moved in and moved them out. After Jesus was denied the throne of Egypt by the Romans and Jews and failed in his attempt to rally the Phoenicians to unite and in power as they once were, he was apprehended in Egypt, charged with trying to overthrow the puppet government of Egypt, found guilty, and put to death atop a pyramid of Giza, Egypt. And from this event comes the expression X marks the spot of death, and the burial of Jesus. These are some very powerful claims that are being made here, but we're going to prove it. Okay, so like I said, we're going to bounce around as far as the the reading is concerned, because I like to read from the BIAE itself. All right, so here, a careful breakdown of paragraph 80 from Bible Interpretations, Explanations, BIAE, with historical, ancient, and symbolic parallels. I'll separate it into the booklet claim and the ancient or mundane parallels so you can clearly see where echoes exist and where reinterpretation is happening. Caucasian history is lies, falsely and ironically written to hide facts. Booklet claim. Mainstream Greco-Roman narratives erase Phoenician and African roles in Egypt, replacing them with Greek/Macedonian dominance. Parallels. Herodotus, Histories, Book 2, admitted Egypt was ancient before Greek influence and credited them with much knowledge. Strabo, Geographica, Book 17, noted that after Alexander, Greeks wrote Egypt into their own history. Afrocentric historians like George G.M. James, once again, Stolen Legacy, 1954, also argue that Greek philosophy was Egyptian knowledge under Greek names, and that's a fact. Phoenicians scattered and powerful by 200 to 300 BC. Phoenicians were still influential and tied to Egypt's throne. Parallels. By 300 BCE, Phoenicians' colonies stretched across North Africa, Carthage, and in the Mediterranean. Carthage, a Phoenician colony, rivaled Rome until its destruction in 146 BCE. Cleopatra's dynasty claimed descent from Ptolemaic Greeks, but Afrocentric readings emphasize Phoenician-Egyptian ties through trade and priestly marriages. Romans and Jews and Greeks controlling Egypt allowed puppet rulers in Phoenician ancestry. Booklet claim Cleopatra and others were figureheads under Rome foreign domination. Parallels. After Alexander's conquest, 332 BCE, Egypt was ruled by Ptolemies, a Macedonian dynasty. Cleopatra VII was the last. Rome exerted heavy control, especially after Pompey's campaign 60 BCE and Julius Caesar's intervention. Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews 12.1, records Jewish communities in Egypt under Ptolemaic and later Roman authority. You see that? The Jews were always there. Jesus denied the throne of Egypt by Romans and Jews. Booklet claim Jesus was a royal claimant, rejected as Pharaoh. Parallels. No direct ancient text says Jesus sought the throne of Egypt. Why? Because by this time, they already had started erasing a lot of the pharaohs as far as Jesus is concerned. They had to wipe his history, had to be pieced together. At least Cleopatra was still able to hold on to her lineage a little bit. But we can see though from the monuments that Cleopatra was always paired with Caesarion, which happened to be her son, because she was passing that throne on to her son. Okay, so it goes from, as we read earlier in the other episodes, it goes from mother to son. Okay, but there are messianic parallels. Here we go. Jewish sources. Messiah denied kingship in Jerusalem. Egyptian parallels. Usurpers and claimants often denied the throne. This is something else they talking about here, which is Horemheb versus Amarna heirs. This refuses the Messiah rejected in Judea with a pharaonic succession struggle in Egypt. Apprehended in Egypt, charged with overthrow attempt, executed at Giza. Booklet came. Jesus was tried and executed atop a pyramid. Canonical Gospels place crucifixion in Jerusalem, which is a totally different location. But now what we're seeing now is that history is changing over. So the original Phoenicians and the original Egyptians that were writing in hieroglyph or writing in Demotic text, which just happens to be a cursive form of the hieroglyphs, it was changing over. They were starting to eradicate. At that time, Rome, Greece, and they were taking over Egypt. So a lot of those writings stopped. So a lot of those priests were not able to document what happened to the pharaoh known as Esau Panthera or Jesus or Caesarion. So a lot of his history now is being told within the Greek and the Jewish scholarship. Okay, so what we're gonna see as far as trying to prove or proving that what happened with Esau Panthera and Jesus / Caesarion is going to be found in the Jewish scholarship, because by this time the African, Egyptian, Phoenician hieroglyphs, all of those things, it completely stopped. So we're not going to find those ancient texts anymore. Now we can only rely on the Jewish texts, okay? And the Jewish historians, okay? So once again, alternative traditions, the Talmud Sanhedrin, 43a, Jesus was executed for sedition. Sedition is like overthrowing. I'm going to show y'all real quick. Real quick, we're going to find out what sedition means. Sedition meaning. Y'all see that? Sedition?
Yeah.
All right. Sedition is an overt conduct such as speech or organization that tends towards rebellion against the established order. Sedition often includes subversion of a constitution and incitement of discontent toward or insurrection against established authority. So you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was charged with that, with sedition. As the BIAE said, the BIAE made the bold claim that he was charged with this. So that means that Afro-Una at that particular point in time was reading from the Talmud. He was piecing together the puzzle of that particular what you call it at as far as this history is concerned, right?
Yeah,
So
they was. Yeah, they excuse me. They was. He basically was trying to accuse him of a January 6th, like Trump.
facts.
Hey, even in the Gospels, they was trying to get him with him saying he was a king. And are you a king? And one gospel say he won't answer, and another gospel say he be like, "Oh, you say I'm the king." But yeah, I see where you're going. Go ahead.
I'm glad you see it now. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Gnostic text, Apocalypse of Peter, second treatise or treatise of the great Seth, describe execution as cosmic and symbolic, not limited to Jerusalem. Because it didn't happen in Jerusalem. They had to see. That's why Afro-Unu made it known that the history they lie. So they got to place it in different places and fabricate the story more than it is. Okay, because at this particular point in time, Jesus is no longer be able to tell his own story. You understand? So even in the biblical context, right? Those words in that book is not the words of the so-called Jesus that people know. You understand? Now they done shifted it all over. Okay, here we go. The pyramid execution is not recorded in antiquity, but it aligns with Egyptian judgment on high symbolism. Look at that. I asked a question about this down below, so we're gonna see that in a second. Okay, X marks the spot, the death place, the place of death and burial. Booklet claim origin of the phrases comes from Jesus' pyramid death. In Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Ankh cross of the life symbol, while the X shape motifs often mark boundaries or dangerous places. The Greek chi, X, was the first letter of Christos. Look at that. And used, and it's also the first letter of Christmas when you see X mass, X/mass. That's where you get this X from too, which represents death, death mass. That's what that means. And used as before I move on real quick, that's why it comes in the beginning of the winter season, because that represents ghosts, it represents death, and it is the dead season. Okay, so that's what the X represents. Okay, all right. Use it as a cross symbol in early Christianity. The link of X with death appears in later European maps. X marking treasure/burial spots. X marks the spot. Afrocentric reinterpretation here. The pyramid apex, spot of sacrifice. All right. So summary of ancient correlates. Historians, once again, these are all Jews. Herodotus, Strabo, evidence of Greek rewriting Egyptian history. Phoenician power, Carthage, and Levantine trade equals still strong 200 to 300 BCE. Puppet rulers, Ptolemies under Rome's shadow. rejection motif. Messiah denied kingship. Jewish what? Sources. Mirrored with Pharaoh denied throne. Execution. Talmud, sedition. Gnostic, cosmic execution. Booklet, Pyramid of Giza. X symbol. The Egyptian Ankh and the Greek Chi, X equals life, death, Christ connection. Interpretation. This passage merges multiple traditions. The Talmudic Panthera history, Jesus as illegitimate, the Cleopatra Antony royal drama, Phoenician throne, the Roman puppet ruler model parallels modern colonialism, and that happens today. How many times you see we spreading what? Democracy? If you go to like 90% of the governments in the world, they spreading democracy. That's how they spread democracy, by overthrowing the governments that's there and putting in their own puppet ruler and say that they're doing what? Spreading democracy. How many times we've heard that? All right. A cosmic death at pyramid, symbolic resurrection at world's axis. All right, so I asked, can you explain this statement? The pyramid execution is not recorded in antiquity, but aligns with Egyptian judgment on high symbolism. Says, yes, let's unpack that carefully. When I wrote the pyramid execution is not recorded in antiquity, but aligns with Egyptian judgment on high symbolism, I was making 2 points at once. Number one, no ancient historian records Jesus being executed at Giza. You wouldn't see that because it's not being recorded by ancient Egyptians anymore. I just showed you that all of the sources that existed at that particular point in time were Jewish sources. So now that what they're doing is they're creating the scene for the Bible, right? Because the Bible, the first Bible is known as the Septuagint. Remember, we read that in the first BIAE. So that right now they're creating the angle and the scene for what they need, right? So Jesus dying in Jerusalem never happened. Okay? He actually died in Giza. They had to lie and change the story. Okay? Canonical Gospels all place the crucifixion in Jerusalem. You see that? Canonical Gospels. Remember, we already told you what a gospel is. It's a ghost spell, meaning they take the truth and they bend it. That's what a spell is. You're taking the truth and you're bending it. So crucifixion did take place, but it wasn't at Jerusalem. It was at Giza. Okay? Talmud and Celsus mention execution, but still in Judea. Of course, other religious sources. They'll keep the facts of the story, but then they will twist it. Okay? Gnostic texts make it more cosmic, mythic, but don't mention Egypt. Egyptian Roman writers, Plutarch, Josephus, Philo, none record pyramid execution. Why? Because the narrative has to be set in place. Okay? So historically, there's no direct source saying Jesus was killed on a pyramid. This part is unique to BIAE's interpretation. Why is it unique? Because the Bible interpretation will give you the truth. The reason why it's the truth is because Jesus is a pharaoh. This is the first place that you ever heard that Jesus is a pharaoh, besides Afro-Unu bringing that out back in 1968. So imagine how people probably thought he was crazy in 1968 to think that Jesus was a pharaoh. I didn't even know that Jesus was a pharaoh. You understand what I'm saying? So moving on. Why judgment on high symbolism fits the pyramid idea. In Egyptian cosmology and temple texts, height equals closeness to gods. Pyramids were built as resurrection machines connecting earth to the heavens. At the apex, the Ben stone, the pharaoh's soul was believed to ascend to the sun Ra. Book of the Dead, spell 125. The judgment hall scene places the deceased before Osiris. Their heart weighed against Ma'at, truth. This was sometimes imagined on high. Pyramid text 2400 BCE use repeated phrases like the king mounts up to the sky, the king ascends on the smoke, the king sits on the throne of Ra. This is literal judgment elevation. Pyramid apex, cosmic summit, where the mortal meets divine justice. So the BIAE's pyramid execution story symbolically overlays Jesus' trial and death with Egyptian imagery of ascent, judgment, rebirth. It's as if the crucifixion cross on the Golgotha hill was translated as the execution on the pyramid summit. Both are high places where the divine human judgment occurs. And that's why Golgotha was renamed, Giza was renamed Golgotha. Okay? Because Golgotha is the place of the skull. I think that's what Golgotha means, skull, or basically the place of the dead, which happened to be the pyramid, because the pyramid was built for pharaohs in order so that dead soul could be resurrected from the pyramid. Okay, though it does have a lot of information within it, and it does have a lot of magic power. We now know that the pyramid is actually a tomb. So a lot of people, a lot of Egypt, what you call it, a lot of modern day Kemite people say that the pyramid is not a tomb, but it was actually built for the dead in order so that the dead could resurrect through that particular pyramid. Okay. Why it matters. For early Christians, the cross was already symbolic of a cosmic intersection, heaven and earth. For Egyptians, the pyramid peak was the axis mundi, the point of contact with the gods. The BIAE re-narrates Jesus' death in the Egyptian idiom. You see, we're not doing it from the Jewish idiom. We're doing it, we're taking it back to where it belongs. Not on a Roman hill, right? But on the world's most powerful sacred mountain of stone. So in short, the pyramid execution is not historical fact, but mythic symbolic. It draws an Egypt's ancient association of the pyramid apex with judgment, sacrifice, and ascent to divinity. It makes Jesus' death into a continuation of Pharaoh's resurrection rituals. But we know the facts. This is a historical fact, even though ChatGPT saying it's not. It is a historical fact. Why? Because they had to twist the story in order for it to be a spell, a ghost spell, as you can see up here when I read it. Right? Where is it at? It's coming from where? From the canonical gospels. Because these are not the truth. It's the truth is mixed in. Okay? All right. So I said by the time of Jesus Caesarion's execution, the mode of documentation shifted from ancient Egyptian texts to Jewish scholars who were recording history. Excellent question. You're pointing out directly to a shift in who was doing the world's memory keeping in the late Ptolemaic / early Roman era, when Caesarion, Ptolemy the 15th, Cleopatra's son, and the historical Jesus traditions overlap. Let's lay it out carefully. All of this was happening at the same time. There was a shift taking place in ancient Egyptian writing. Then you had the Ptolemaic, the Roman era. Then you got the Phoenician, the last Phoenician queen. And then you also had the Jewish traditions all interwoven these stories all at once at this particular point in time. Okay. Number one, end of native Egyptian documentation, pharaonic inscriptions and temple texts, pyramid text, coffin text, Book of the Dead largely end with the early Ptolemies. You see, all of this writing is dead. By Cleopatra the 7th's reign, 51st 51 BCE, 51 BCE to 30 BCE, hieroglyphic writing was still carved in temples. So they still was carving and doing stuff, Philae and Dendera, but mostly for ritual purposes, not detailed political history. So the history was already stopped being recorded. Remember in the earlier BIAE excerpts, I was reading from all of the different texts we had. When it was the Moses text, it was the text with what's his name, with Amanubi Rakata, Menez, and all of that stuff was in Egyptian history. But now we're gravitating or moving towards the Jewish text. Okay, I want to keep beating that point in so that we know. Okay. After Rome's conquest in 30 BCE, temples lost funding and hieroglyphic literacy collapsed. See that? By this time, ain't no more writing and no more teaching of the hieroglyphs. Okay? By 200 CE, hieroglyphs were virtually extinct as a living script. So yes, by Jesus/Caesarion's time, Egyptian-style cosmic inscriptions were no longer the main historical record. Boom, bow. Okay? Rise of Greco-Roman and Jewish narratives. Romans, after Octavian Augustus took Egypt in 30 BCE, Roman writers like Plutarch, Cassius Dio, and Suetonius became the main storytellers of Mediterranean politics. You see that? The Jews became the media. Sorry, no, these are not Jews. These are Romans. I apologize. Yeah, these are Romans.
They're still Jews.
Right. So that goes to show you that the Mediterranean politics, this is their form of media. We're reading from the media sources right now. Okay? They frame Cleopatra, Antony, and Caesarion from a Roman perspective because that was the media at that particular point in time. All right. So then now Jewish scribes around the same time, 1st century BCE to the 1st century CE, Jewish scholars began writing in Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek. You see what they're doing now? Now they're writing in different languages. Aramaic, Hebrew, and Greek. These are what the Jewish scholars were doing. All right. So now examples, Dead Sea Scrolls, 150 BCE to 7 CE, Messianic prophecies and sectarian history. Josephus, 37. Hold on for a second, y'all. Give me 1 second. I got to move from this location real quick. Give me 1 second, y'all. I got to move from this location. What y'all think so far, though? Well, until when I just move this location I'm at. What y'all think? I'm listening, though.
Yeah. Basically, it's just pinpointing how everything was formatted for them to get rid of the ancient Egyptian texts, as far as the hieroglyphs, to continue on with their spells of how they were able to formulate the Bible in different languages, Aramaic, Greek, so forth. But yeah, it's just bringing everything. It's just bringing everything to fruition of how everything was formulated. It's powerful information.
Yeah, I think the most outstanding part, like you said, the Mediterranean, they became storytellers, and the same thing like today. You look around, the Jewish people are in media.
That's right.
CNN, NBC, they at the top positions, controlling the narrative. Like you said, I heard Bibi Netanyahu said the other day that they have to win the war of technology, because he's saying you can't use a sword and all that like those old other fights. So he said what he meant was they need to take control of all the media that's unfavorable to Israel. And this is what people are not understanding. They telling you this is what happened back then.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? They didn't want that man walking around talking bad about what the Jewish people were doing under the names of the Greeks and the Romans.
Right.
He was talking against their government the same way people are talking against them right now.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I said that Charlie Kirk was doing the same thing, and he was executed for speaking against them. And this is why they're trying to, you know, put him up there with MLK and Jesus and stuff like that. But the people behind it are the ones that been killing all these folks. And I've been in the deep rabbit hole sector of things where they say they were behind the taking out of many leaders from other lands that they was causing distress. But a lot of times they don't take the credit for it. They'll just sit in the background. But yeah, that's what they're doing now. And it took control of TikTok. He's saying they're finna get with Elon, and they're gonna go out to Instagram. See, they got the money to do so, and the blackmail and the magic. Don't forget that. So they're gonna try to silence, just like they silenced what happened with Caesarion, aka Esau Panthera, aka Jesus Christ, and how they mixed and meshed his lifestyle or what he was doing in between different books, and they just renamed and remixed places and locations and moved the timeline. They're doing the same thing now. They're rewriting the narrative. Once you control the media, and it's not just the media, they got people that work in the media, but they control the media. And this is why the tech thing is being pushed, so they can surveillance you, so they can get you before you go out there and start speaking something that can cause them to be exposed. So all of this is what Afro said, that the Caucasians have a grand spy system, and they had it way back then. That they go into all your places of secrecy. They become a member. They'll marry in. They'll have kids. They do whatever it takes to take you down.
Facts.
So that's pretty much what we're seeing now, and that's why I'm glad that what a Newt is doing and the ChatGPT is we're being guided to go into the Jewish writings, because they're the ones who control the narratives of the education and stuff like that.
That's why I had to. That's why I had to bring in the fact that, you know, what you know, the shift in the writing.
Yeah,
We see the shift in the writing, and the shift in the writing happened right when Jesus was executed. You understand what I'm saying? So they had to muddy those waters real quick, because they knew that that at this particular point in time, people would revere Jesus as being so, you know, holy, as what a lot of people are doing today. So now imagine when they find out that the Jews is the one that killed them. The people are gonna be heartbroken. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're gonna be heartbroken, and they're gonna see that Jesus was a regular man.
That's
you know?
it.
And he was a regular Phoenician. He was tried in court. He lost. He as a matter of fact, Jesus was just like Martin Luther King and Malcolm and all of them. He was speaking against the government. He was leading a revolution. You understand what I'm saying? But he ended up getting himself killed. Why? Because it was destined for him to buy them 2,000 years, and right now they got 2,000 plus years. So you know they're still ruling, but the positive forces and the negative forces will be working together to make sure that doesn't happen much longer. But we're gonna get right back to the regularly scheduled program. I have to shift my location for a second so that there's no interruptions. Okay. So
we have 54 minutes. You gonna run the whole thing?
You want me? Hold on, let me see something real quick. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. Let me see how much more we got. Actually, we could restart it. We could go back and restart it. All right. So if you want, we could go do another. We're gonna do another
Another section, another part.
yeah, another
All right.
second. Yeah, another section.
All right, so we're gonna end this one, y'all. We're gonna come right back.
Mm-hmm.
All right, peace.